and working all the way back to the very initial work we did with Tim Murphy and Patrick Kennedy on health information technology in the House. The very first press conference I did with Hillary Clinton actually was on behalf of their bipartisan bill on health IT. And, of course, last year we worked with Senator John Kerry on e-prescribing, and so we've with Siemens' help, we've actually, at the center, been pretty aggressively involved all the way from the original development of the Office of the Coordinator for Health Information Technology and Brailer's originally design and implementation of that office up to the present. And in addition, I want to pick up something that Charlene said a while ago and urge everybody who's on this call to take a look at the video at Allegiant that Siemens developed. Allegiant is a 9,000-employee health system in Nebraska that does an extraordinary job. They were rated the highest quality and satisfaction system in the country last year, and they just do an amazing job. Wayne Sensor is a great leader there. And working with Siemens, they have really developed some breakthroughs in moving towards a paperless hospital system of extraordinary accuracy and efficiency. And I think you'll find the video very, very interesting, and it's something that's part of a long-term professional education process. Let me also take just a minute to talk about today's big news about all the various folks who have gone to the White House to say they're going to save money. I think there's a very good thing about this and a very unknown thing about this. The good thing is that in contrast with the Hillary Care process of 1993, we don't have 500 people hiding in a room trying to write the magic bill that's going to go through in an up or down vote. We actually have a process underway where lots and lots of different players have a real opportunity to have input. And I think in that sense, this is already a healthier process than we saw in 1993 and a more open process. What we don't know, and this is what leaves us, I think, a little bit skeptical but encouraged, if that might be the right formula, is there are no details that are binding and there are no details that are clarifying in an expensive way. What we're really getting today is a press release that says we'd all like to get health reform, we're all for health reform, we're all pledged to do something on health reform, and we think if we all do this together we'll actually save some money. And that money, because the health system is so huge, that money might actually come out to be about $2 trillion over 10 years. Remember, this is a system which over 10 years will spend probably something on the order of $30 trillion on health care, or $35 trillion. So while $2 trillion is a lot, it's got to be seen proportionate to the total scale of the system, and nobody's defining where the money's coming from. So currently we're at the wish list press conference stage. But it is encouraging, and it will be fascinating to watch now as that gets moved into a more detailed negotiation. I want to walk you very briefly to two positions, and then really toss it open for questions and give people a chance to explore some more. The first is the slide that is a 21st century personalized intelligent health system. The model we're building at the Center for Health Transformation, working with Siemens and others, starts with the idea that the real foundation, the most important part of this, is individual rights, responsibilities, and expectation of behavior. Now, you might notice that there are 4 boxes on this slide, and I'm fairly simple-minded about how to communicate, so I actually normally describe this as the 4-box model. And all of you will understand now why it's the 4-box model. And the most important insight that we came up with 2 years ago was almost all of politics is on the 4th box, including today's press event. It's all involved with money and financing. But in fact, the 4th box is entirely a function of the first 3. And if all you do is try to control the system at the very end, you end up in an almost impossible circumstance. In fact, what we concluded, looking at chronic care and looking at the other factors of the modern health system, is that the foundational box of everything is individual rights and responsibilities and information. For example, if you're diabetic, only you can ultimately control your diabetes. The doctor can advise you, the nurse can talk with you, but if you don't take steps to control your own diabetes, it won't get controlled. If you're a woman of an appropriate age and you need a breast cancer exam on a regular basis, only you can volunteer to go get the exam. If you're a man or a woman over a certain age and you ought to get a colonoscopy every few years, only you can do that. I often point out to audiences there'll be substantial outrage if we had involuntary colonoscopies. And so people have, if you're going to get these proactive, positive things done, it has to start with the individual. And the individual both has to have rights, but they have to have responsibilities. We think they ought to have the right to know price and quality information. We think they ought to have the right to know what the range of options available to them are for their particular condition. We think they ought to have a responsibility to know what their conditions are, to work on their conditions and to be compliant. And that means that there are some expectations that people will actually change their behavior. Now, this is not radical or new. We've dramatically changed behavior on smoking in the last 50 years. We've changed behavior on using seat belts, which didn't even exist commercially prior to 1956. We've changed behavior on tolerance of drunk driving. And there are a number of steps we've begun to intervene to try to get people to have significantly more responsible behaviors. I think that will continue as we learn more about how to help people live the longest possible life with the greatest possible health, with the greatest possible independence at the lowest possible cost. And that's really the four goals of the 21st century personalized intelligent health system. Now, if we get you to take care of your own responsibilities and rights, then you want to design a culture and societal pattern which actually helps the community be healthier. If the first box is about you as an individual, the second box is you and your community. For example, at the Center for Health Transformation, we are adamantly in favor of mandatory 5-day-a-week physical education for K through 12. We think the first step towards minimizing teenage obesity and diabetes is pretty simple. Get them exercising. The second step is equally simple. Modify the school breakfast and school lunch program so every meal served in the school is appropriate for somebody with diabetes, because then it will be appropriate for everybody. Now, I'm actually pretty radical about all this. I even advocate that if you live within a mile of the school, you ought to actually walk to school. And I'm prepared to go back and reinvent raincoats and boots if that'll help people get back in the habit of exercise. And I would argue statistically that a child who routinely walked to school, even if they were occasionally in the rain or the snow, would actually be healthier than a child who was chauffeured to school and therefore didn't get enough exercise. So the question there is, how do we maximize culture and societal patterns? Now, my favorite recent example is Mick Cornett, the mayor of Oklahoma City, who had always been 30 to 40 pounds overweight, got up on the 1st of January 2008, announced to the city that he was going to lose weight, challenged the city to join him, put up a web page for weight loss, got restaurants to have a Mayor Cornett recipe as well as the regular recipes. I spoke at the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma dinner honoring him in September, and by September the city had lost 176,000 pounds. Now that's an example of a significant shift in the right direction. The third box is effective, efficient, and productive health delivery system. I'm going to talk about this in a little more length when we get to the next page. But let me just say that if you have been a student of Edwards Deming and quality and the concept of continuous improvement, if you've studied the Toyota production system and the degree to which it has been a really powerful model for effective management and leadership, if you looked at the idea of moving to best practices on a continuing basis, we believe we can have a much more effective, much more efficient and productive health delivery system. And I think if you do look at the Allegiant video, you'll see why Siemens is intrigued with what they're doing in Omaha, and you'll see some examples of moving in the right direction. But we believe if you take the first three boxes, get individuals to be more responsible for their own health and more aware of it and more empowered, get the community to be more health-focused and health-oriented, and develop the continuous improvement ability of the delivery system so that we're continuously migrating towards better outcomes, then we believe you actually have saved so much money that you're going to be able to finance a 305 or 310 million payer system. We believe you use vouchers and you use tax credits. You probably voucherize Medicaid and put it back into the regular system. We believe that there should be must carry, that is, everybody should either have health insurance, or if you're an absolute libertarian, we would allow you to post a bond, but we would not allow people to be free riders failing to insure themselves and then showing up at the emergency room with no means of payment. If you have must carry, then the insurance companies have told us that we can have must issue, and you will therefore have a system in which you don't have to worry about cherry picking and maneuvering. These four boxes, we believe, begin to create a 21st century personalized intelligent health system. And certainly, as we move beyond today's press conference at the White House, this is the kind of general model we're going to be advocating. If you go to the last page, Transformative Health Agenda for 2009, we have four very large components, one of which David has already talked about. The first is health-based health reform. This is a conscious effort on our part to begin reaching out, identifying better practices, figuring out how to codify them and migrate to them. And we believe there are literally billions and billions of dollars available. If you look, for example, at the VA hospital in Pittsburgh, where a doctor has developed a very inexpensive five-step process for minimizing infectious disease in hospitals, they've reduced their infectious disease rate by 83%. Now, that is a substantial improvement in human life, in quality of life, and it actually saves a good bit of money, and it turns out to be very inexpensive to do. It's a matter of culture and attitude and good management. We think there are lots of examples like this, and so we have at the center a health-based health reform model that we are developing, and which you can see if you go to healthtransformation.net. Second, I always advocated the Eisenhower Electronic Health System because President Eisenhower proposed in 1955 a National Defense Interstate Highway Act, and I've always felt that in the age of pandemics and a potential engineered biological attack and the challenge of Katrina or a huge earthquake in Southern California or the challenge of a potential nuclear event by a terrorist, we need an electronic health system exactly the same way that in 1955 we needed the interstate highway system for national defense. And we have actively advocated at the center of the federal government funding. And I think in a stimulus bill I'm generally very skeptical of. I think that this was probably the best single thing in the bill. Third, Jim Frogue, who does our annual Medicaid conference, for the fifth one will be this September, is busy working on a book that he is editing on fraud because we believe that there is an immense amount of potential fraud in both Medicaid and Medicare. For example, in one raid in South Florida, a federal state task force closed down 17 facilities in one day. These were HIV/AIDS transfusion facilities. 5 of the 17 were actually pizza parlors. And it just gives you some sense of the scale of fraud we're dealing with. We think it's somewhere between $70 and $200 billion a year in savings. And our argument is, if you need to save money to modernize the system and to get everybody insured, take it away from the crooks. Don't take it away from the honest people. Finally, coming out of our Alzheimer's study group, which Senator Bob Kerrey and I co-chaired, and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor participated in, we are proposing a very fundamental change in the Budget Act to enable science to move at the most rapid possible rate. Alzheimer's is a tremendously difficult disease, as most of you know. It affects every sixth person over 62 and every other person over 85. Over the next 40 years, the estimate is that Alzheimer's will cost $20 trillion, so the T, $20 trillion, in addition to being, of course, enormously painful for families and loved ones. And we have 3 Nobel Prize winners and 125 other neuroscientists who have told us at the Alzheimer's Study Group, which was housed here at the Center for Health Transformation, that they believe with adequate resources and adequate management, we have a good chance by 2020 to end Alzheimer's as a threat. Even if they're off by a decade, the scale of the savings would be breathtaking. And so we're proposing a fundamental redesign of the Budget Act to allow for long-term investment in projects that have huge payoff in the out year, but that you can't fund rationally on a one-year-at-a-time basis. So this gives you a sense of the kind of continuing transformational agenda that we are developing here at the Center for Health Transformation. And again, we're doing it in part because Siemens has been such a great partner in bringing in new ideas, new technology, and new approaches.